Welcome to The Well First podcast. And then we also have my first employee and the first person to join my team at The Well, Claudia Rusomano.
Perfect.
Okay, yes.
Perfect.
She has an Italian last name, which, yes. Mom, aren't you happy about? So maybe tell us a little bit about why you became a therapist.
I mean, it started off with my favorite high school teacher in AP Psychology. She's just amazing, Mrs. Wydra, shout out. And I just fell in love with psychology, and one thing led to another, and now I'm just like, okay, let's help people by just talking about it. So
I think what I really loved when I met you was like just your love for people. I found you really disarming and just easy to talk to, and I feel like you're very safe, and that's why I trust people that come in to like this place. Like I felt like they'd be safe in your care.
I appreciate that. That's really sweet.
How did you begin to focus on trauma? Because I mean, I love that part of your clinical interest was to help people that went through trauma and complex trauma. So you can talk about that.
Well, so I studied at USC, and the big focus there is making sure that you're not just diagnosing people with something that could actually just be unaddressed trauma. And so my biggest thing is like, okay, are you actually dealing with something that is this extreme? Or are you actually just hurting from something that has happened to you, but you don't connect the triggers to that? And so I just have realized that a lot of our trauma, whether it be, what we think about, which is someone in the military, or actually just having a really harsh comment given to you by a family member or a friend, that really wounds our heart. And so my goal is always to help people with those wounds so that we can move forward and actually be what God has called us to be, which is fearfully and wonderfully made. So.
I love that. And I love how you just don't want to label people, because I think a lot of people, they actually, a barrier for them doing therapy is like they don't want to be labeled.
Right.
They it's really heavy, and they're like, I want to be seen. So I think that's really great. Is like you the holistic, like you take in person's like their story, their environment, what they've been through, and not just their symptoms.
Right. Yeah, because they're a whole person. They're not just their flaws and what they're coming in for. There's more to what we're going through than just what we see. So,
and that's what I love about holistic psychology is like the mind, body, and spirit. And I think that's why we're really excited to have you at the Well, because it's not just a psychological or just like the medical model, which is like symptom reduction. But we want to get like depth, depth therapy, depth and healing, which I think requires like the whole person.
Yes, absolutely.
So everyone is very excited, including me, about your one of your interventions that you do for trauma is EMDR. And I remember the first time someone asked me if I did EMDR. I go, no, I don't go to raves. And I didn't even know what they were saying. And they're like, yeah. Like, what? And then they're like, no, that's a shorthand for what? Like, what is?
So EMDR is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And so really what it is we're trying to get to that lost part of our wound, if you will. Our mind is really good at helping us whenever we're in pain. So if we're in pain, we're not going to hold on to it and share it all the time. We're actually going to try to repress it and not bring it up. What EMDR is we want to get to that point in a safe way that we wouldn't do as we would in regular talk therapy, where we just sit here and I ask you to tell me your trauma. Yes. We really try to activate the left and right hemisphere, which is where most people know EMDR, which is when I do this, right?
Yeah, the
eye movement. For myself, I like doing the butterfly tapping, which I like to tell people, like, get ready for baptism, if you will, because something new is going to come out, right? And so typically what happens is we store trauma in a way that isn't as smooth as we would with a happy memory, right? And so what we're trying to do is bring out more of that memory and actually bring out a positive feeling and not just like a fix. We're looking for, when we experience trauma, we start to have this very negative belief about ourselves. And the hope is that when we're done with EMDR, you don't feel super tied to that negative belief, but there's actually a positive belief about who you are.
Change like the narrative around the trauma. What I found fascinating about that intervention is a lot of times with people with PTSD I've seen in my patients is they can't time stamp the trauma. It's like for them, it's happening in the moment, and it stops them from being present because it's all right brain. Right brain is very like reactionary and sensory and emotions. And so what happens in talk therapy or with EMDR is that you're activating also the left side of the brain too, which is like language and self-reflection. So you're kind of putting a timestamp on the trauma that helps them encode into long-term memory. And I think that helps you then be able like, okay, that happened then, now I'm safe here.
Right.
And that's why I'm really excited for this new intervention and service that we have for the well. And then lastly, I wanted to introduce maybe our next like talk is going to be about dream analysis.
Yes.
And how, like, why I wanted to talk about dream analysis next week was I heard in EMDR, when they did brain scans, it has the same brain waves as when you are in REM sleep.
Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So when we're in REM sleep, that's when our eyes start doing this like side to side thing.
Yes.
That's when we're dreaming. That's when we're at our most like deep sleep. It's very similar with EMDR, right? We're doing this.
Yes.
Except for, we do this one, at least for myself. That's my preference. But it's very connected to dream analysis.
No, that's why, I thought like, just like in dreams, we try to break down something that's raw and we want to break it down so that we could process it and then we could like encode it. In our dreams, we also like, it's our unconscious wanting to break down or process things that we repressed during the day.
Yes.
So I think it'd be really great if we talked about EMDR and dream analysis and then how actually they help you overcome things that maybe are that you avoid during the day or you repress. So that'll be next week's episode. Stay tuned. And we're so thankful for you for listening in, and so thankful for Claudia for joining. Like,
thankful for you.
Yes,
it's a great connection.
Yes.
So,
and we'll see you next week.